Vulture, welcome back. This is video number 4, Between Death and Life by Dolores Cannon. We just finished video 3 with the end of chapter 11. So now we're on chapter 12, Planning and Preparation. I don't have a terrible lot to go. We're really at the end of the book. So when we finish, depending on the time, and if I can think of it, we'll read some cards. Chapter 12, Planning and Preparation. So between lives, it's like going to lectures. It's like going to school. Spirits tell others what they've learned from their life's experiences. All this communication is telepathic. And, for example, you might be told, well, I learned to follow my intuition and not my physical senses, because senses can be deceived. In the between time, you can develop your psychic and intuitive abilities. It's easier to do that there, and it's helpful here. The physical plane is a barrier to psychic ability, but you can get past that if you work on that between lives. What you need to learn is drawn to you. So it's not like, oh my God, what have I got to learn? It's drawn to you. When you seek out knowledge, it comes to you. And I think it's we'll have to maybe ask questions about that from the cards, but I think it's, let me write that down so I don't forget. I often say these books tend to be connected, some weird way they present themselves to us. I think that's a manifestation of that exact thing. What you need to know is drawn to you. Some souls don't really want to make the effort, and they reincarnate quickly. They're chained to the wheel of karma, and they like what's going on here in the physical plane. So the more you develop between your lives, the more you're liberated. It's an interesting juxtaposition. You can develop really quickly in the physical plane, but on the spiritual plane, you get the tools to help that to work. So in preparation to return, a group that's linked karmically discusses what karmic things they all want to work on together, with their guides helping, how they will interweave. It's like a network of interrelationships. So when two people are connected on Earth, their progress increases karmically, and when they work together, it's a multiplier of lessons. You're encouraged to cross paths for future lifetimes to work things out together. So when you need help, just ask your guides to be your spiritual friend, basically. And you'll either hear it in your mind or in your feelings or your intuition. And they can actually give a nudge to neutral events to help you in the direction you're trying to go. So if something feels right and good, then do it. If you feel insecure or fearful or anxious about it, or it makes you angry, wait and see how that turns out. Spiritual guides will suggest to you without forcing you. So karma, in the cycle of lives, there's certain connections between specific groups of people, and they just appear together over and the people appear together over and over in the physical plane. In one life, a spirit might be your parent or your boss, and in another life might be your child or your neighbor or your friend. You just never know. Eventually, the group can develop and join as an entity greater than all the individual selves. That was kind of an interesting notion. Karma is a complex tapestry of all of our interactions that work in cause and effect in a complex web. Any action is a cause or an effect. You're always working out karma and creating future karma. It's the cycle of life. When you try your best to work out past karma, you create good karma for the future. So it's not a prison. It's a natural cycle of growth, and you're hoping to become your ultimate self. Many people say that they don't want to come back. And this is where I'm like, oh God, they don't want to come back. And these are immature spirits who have much growing to do. I've heard that before, that if you're the kind of person who says, oh, I'm not coming back here, you're the exact one who needs it more than anybody. As I say that all the time. I can't imagine being a child again. Ugh. Anyway, karma is not punishment. It's good and bad lessons, and they're all teaching tools. Sometimes something terrible happens to someone out of proportion to their life. How can such a horrible thing happen to such a good person? So they may have volunteered to work out a major portion of karma in something really awful. It's a growth opportunity for them and for everybody who witnesses it. Chapter 13 is the General Counsel. This is the description of an energy field in the book, an energy field with a council chamber. It's like an amphitheater. I have a hard time wrapping my head around these physical descriptions of these spiritual planes, and they explain that it may be perceived differently for different spirits. This is the best that these subjects can do, verbalizing what it is they're experiencing, and it's presented to them in physical terms that they can understand. So it will not be the same for everybody, but what these people are reporting is like a chamber, an amphitheater with holograms of things that everyone sits around and discusses, that spirits, my neighbor with his killer dog. Spirits sit around. They're like white lights pulsating. They have auras, lights, colors. There's quite a lengthy description. There are many, many planes of development, and all these spirits interact to help each other. The higher entities can lower their vibration to help on a different plane. If they're advanced, you can go lower, but you can't go higher. So you can reach down to help people, and you can ask for help from above, but you can't go into the above until you're ready. It's hard to communicate with people who have negative karma. It's like they describe it as if you take two magnets with the same pole and you try to get them together and they push against each other. It's really hard. It's the same sort of thing. Persons make decisions. They make negative decisions, and many spirits will nudge things to get the situation moving in a better direction, so that the events have a less drastic effect on others. So if you've got these spirits who are making these horrible negative decisions, like let's say, oh, I don't know, the Republican Party, we're going to start begging the guides to try to nudge things in the proper direction, so we're not living in an authoritarian hell. But we still need to go and vote. Free will. Near-death experiences, souls will come up to a barrier, and at that barrier, there's the crossing over between the physical and the spiritual. You can see the spiritual, but you don't cross into it. You come back. If you go across, that silver cord's broken and it's over in the physical plane. It's a pleasant experience, they say, to cross through this, but it's such a huge transition that it's a shock. So it's a pleasant surprise, but it's a surprise. People come back from a near-death experience because they need to break out of a pattern of karma, and this near-death experience has been allowed for them to shake up their thinking and start new patterns of thinking and behavior. So they talk about, crossing the River Jordan, crossing over, and going through the veil. Those are all fancy ways of saying crossing between the physical and the spiritual energy barrier. If you go into the light, you feel cleaned, washed in the River Jordan, because your vibrations are improving. The mind slowly adjusts. At first, it sees that everything looks like the physical world, only more beautiful, but gradually you set aside your attachment to the physical, your spirit does, and you start to be relating more to the spiritual. The laws of physics are different there, and it depends on what plane you've evolved to. So we just don't have words. There's no way for me to explain it. Thank God. It's really complicated when they talk about it in the book. So interesting. Somebody told Dolores Cannon. I'm going to write this down. Somebody told her that this book and all this information, I'm getting chills, it's part of her karma. That part of her job that she was given in this lifetime was to write these books so that lots of people could know about it. Reassure people, encourage people, and guide people. So I thought that was really interesting. And it's really important, they say, that we stay open to all of this now that we've heard it. Now that we've heard it, don't try to unhear it. Don't forget it. Our guides have led us to this information. So interesting. Now this next chapter is weird. Chapter 14, Imprinting. So what is imprinting? Imprinting is not a true physical existence. In other words, you get information about a whole entire lifetime that somebody lived from the Akashic records, and it imprints on your soul and it becomes your experience. And it's a way of benefiting from an entire life experience without having to live it. You, the person, you can't tell the difference. The imprint happens as though it were a real thing. And it's a way of living hundreds of thousands of years on a plane and actually never be there. It's an efficiency technique. Some soul new to a planet would maybe be lost without imprints. They'll come equipped. It's like an operating program almost. You, as a brand new soul, wouldn't know what to make heads or tails of what you were seeing after you were born. And this way, you've got a frame of reference subconsciously. It's subconscious. You must have a previous earthly experience of human existence in your subconscious. Is the next line. Gives the soul something to draw on. Otherwise, the soul feels totally out of harmony. It would interfere with learning. You just would spend all of your time trying to figure things out. You'd be traumatized by anger or fear or confusion or whatever. So therefore, we rely more on our subconscious than we even realize. These imprints are open to all, and we decide on an individual basis. Are we going to avail ourselves of the lessons that are learned? And these lives in this tapestry may belong to individuals, but it's not like a proprietary thing. Nobody loses if somebody else imprints your life. Maybe why several people, she said this is really interesting, and they told her this explains a phenomenon that hypnotists who do regressive therapy have seen and not been able to explain. You'll regress people and they'll claim that they are somebody in a past life, but somebody else already claimed to be that person in a past life. It's because they've imprinted on that life in the spirit plane. It makes no difference. The lessons are learned, and that's really the only thing that matters. Imprints are chosen by the goals you have for lessons. It's all just life energy that's stored. It's not to get wrapped up in the ego thing. It's like researching in a library. You learn, and it doesn't work off your karma. It's an opportunity to learn, and it's still there for other people to learn, and it still validly happened in the past, you know, that you could learn about it. It's just aids, learning aids. You can have the experience of Christ consciousness from the imprint of the lives of Jesus and Buddha, and some people have done that. Religion, all religions, they say, are just an issue of semantics. It's all about semantics. And they get caught up on it. So the next chapter is really interesting. Chapter 15, Walk-ins. She tells this unusual story of a subject that she regressed. There was a young woman who was born dead. It was a home birth, and she was stillborn. The doctor put the baby aside to work on the mother to save the mother. And the aunt picked the baby up and started trying to revive the baby. And finally, after like 15 minutes, this baby cried. So they regressed. She worked with this young woman and regressed to see what she could remember of her birth, because the girl knew that she had a traumatic birth. And what they discovered was that our souls are fully aware of our time before and during birth. Not necessarily inside the baby's body, just hanging around. The timing of when a soul enters a body is very individual. It can go into the baby whenever it chooses, or not at all, or it can go and leave. So the only requirement is that the life energy has to enter the baby at the moment of its first breath. And if the soul opts not to, then the baby is stillborn. And this is sort of an arrangement made ahead of time. Canon took this young woman back to the time that you first entered this physical body. And the girl says, I'm watching near the foot of the bed. And then she says that she's going into an adult body that she'd already been in and out of several times. And Canon's like, whoa, 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 what are you talking about? I want you to go back to your birth. And she said, no, you told me to go back to when my soul entered this body. And I'm telling you that I did it when this body was an adult. So a soul who's living, you know, you're born, your soul enters your body, and you live 30 years or whatever, and your soul, now this is happening on a subconscious spiritual level, decides, okay, I've learned what I need to learn, I'm done, I need to get out of here, it's just too much, I've taken on too much, I want to leave. And what can happen is there's an exchange of souls. This is so weird. You'll be asleep, and your soul will leave, and a volunteer soul will enter, and you'll never know anything different about it because it's on a soul level. The soul decides she's taken on too much to handle. She asks to leave. She could die at this point, but why waste a good body? So what they do, since it's not really time for the body to die, they relinquish the body to another soul. It's a trade that both parties agree to. No harm is done. And you think on a conscious level, oh my God, what are they doing to me? This is something you've worked out, and just don't worry about it. You won't feel any different. It's not possession where an entity tries to take control of you. This is decided on a spiritual plane while the body is asleep. Like you travel, you know, when you're asleep. This is more frequent than people would think because the pressure of life on earth is often overwhelming. Souls come here thinking, oh, I'm gonna take 18 credits this semester, and then, whoa, maybe that was a little bit more. I bit off more than I could chew. So the walk-ins have the benefit of coming to an adult body. They don't have to go through the trauma of birth. They are more open to life. They don't have to go through all the travails of being a child again. These people can guide others. They're actually more enlightened, and they can guide others in times to come. And walk-ins have been increasing because there's a shortage of time left on Earth and a shortage of bodies. So they bring fresh energy without the distraction of childbirth and childhood, and they tend to be psychic. So this can happen in a near-death situation, but it usually happens just when you're asleep. The walk-in comes. Your original soul goes to learn on the spirit plane. The new soul comes as a walk-in, and on the subconscious spiritual level, this is an interaction that happens. You wake up with the memories of the original soul that you already were, but you take on the karma, and you kind of know on a subconscious level what the plan is. The plan's changed a little bit, and you're ready for it. It's not important that you remember that this has happened. It doesn't matter. The good that this new soul can do in your body is what matters. And you're still yourself. You're not different. For babies, now here's where it gets really, now we're going to talk a little bit about stillbirths and SIDS and that kind of thing. If that's painful for you, I'll wave when it's over. For babies, the soul leaves the body frequently while they're asleep, for healthy babies. And this can go on as long as like 2 years old or older. And sudden infant death, maybe the soul's decided, okay, forget about it. I've changed my mind. And that's okay too. It's all free will. And this can happen to people in a coma. And the advice that we're given here is that it's really wrong to keep people alive with machines. That's wrong. It's easier to be, with a caveat. There are situations where it's a temporary thing, but to go on and on, like, was it Mary Shivo, the name, that young woman, Karen Shivo? I'm terrible with names. The young woman who was in a vegetative state, and they were keeping her alive. And, it's, her soul is not engaged in this situation. So it's easier to be a walk-in than to have to deal with growing up. I could have told them that. That's not news to me. So when you're awakened as a walk-in, the subject was shocked, and the subject, when she's awakened from her hypnosis, she was shocked, and she said that she felt no different. Before or after this had happened, she had no idea. She did say, though, that parents and friends around her said that she seemed a little different, that she'd changed a lot, matured. Walk-in is a partnership. It's 100% agreed on by both sides. It's okay. Don't freak out about it. The living person will be unaware. The conscious is never interrupted. The subconscious changes hands. And it's all good. Okay. What is this? Oh, okay. This is about abortion. Residency in the body is not a requisite of the life force concept. Life force comes from the mother, and so the soul can be lingering around. The residency of the spirit into the body would be optional or up to the individual spirit as to when that spirit would assume the custodianship of that life form and integrate it into its own reality. And at that, Dolores Cannon says, so what you're saying is we are not able to define at what point life really begins. And the spirits tell us this is accurate. We cannot define when life begins. And so abortion should not be criticized in the sense of killing a soul, because it's not possible to gauge at what point that physical life form had indeed taken a soul. It's best understood to know that in deciding whether to carry out an abortion, this responsibility is shared not only by the mother, but by that life force which would inhabit the mother. It's done on a somewhat deeper level of awareness than subconscious, but not completely in the inner realms. There is some conscious communication which is inherent in this decision-making process. It is of a level that is somewhat inner and yet somewhat outer at the same time simultaneously. Incoming souls choose their parents and the environment during the planning stage before entering the fetus. The spirit does not like to be confined within the developing baby because it's been used to being free, so it doesn't want to remain in the baby's body during the entire pregnancy. It can go back and forth between the spirit world if it chooses. If the pregnancy is interrupted by an abortion or a miscarriage, it doesn't harm the soul because that part is eternal and incapable of being harmed. If the incoming soul still wants to be connected with that specific family, It simply waits for the next opportunity. Maybe the next time the mother becomes pregnant, she'll be better able to handle the responsibility of the child. In the meantime, many lessons have been presented to be learned. So in the case of an abortion, the incoming soul just says, it's okay. I'll catch you the next time. In the case of a miscarriage, the baby's body was not developing correctly, and it would not have been an appropriate vehicle to carry out the plan the soul wanted to accomplish. So the same thing happens. The soul simply waits until the next appropriate opportunity to come into the same family environment. I had one client who said, I wish you could have told my mother that. She miscarried a baby before me, and she grieved for that child all her life. I told her there was no reason to grieve because the mother didn't lose anything. That first baby just returned as my client, the second baby. We have even had this happen in my own family. This is Dolores Cannon speaking. One of my daughters had a baby boy that was born dead, and almost to the day, a year later, she had a second boy. We've never grieved for the first one because we know it returned as the second one. Apparently, the first time he wasn't ready to make the jump to enter the chaotic world. He had to be persuaded that he'd signed a contract, you made a deal, and now you have to go through with it. That should be reassuring for people, I would think. And then SID, sudden infant death, the spirit rejects the life. It just decides to withdraw. It might feel like it's bitten off more than can chew. It sees the whole karmic plan for its entire life, and it might go, whoa, this was more than I anticipated. Or I don't feel fully equipped yet. It's no bearing on the parents. It's just the soul opting out, which is allowed. So chapter 16, the return trip. The spirit will check out the family before it's born. This is the return trip from the spirit world to birth. It studies them to kind of get an idea of how to cope with them, which I find mystifying, given my family. The spirit may not enter at the first breath, and may not choose to do that, and the mother will provide the life energy until the spirit enters the baby. The spirit can come and go for the first little while as it adjusts. It can decide not to stay, as in SIDS, and it's been known for baby spirits to leave up to 1 year old, and even up to 5, depending on some people. So then there's some general stuff here that you must not hope, you must believe. Hope has no power and hope has no strength. But believing does. With belief, we can work toward our ultimate destiny. A spirit is aware of a mother's feelings while she's pregnant. And this one spirit told Dolores Cannon that it was kind of sad because the mother didn't want the baby and was just sort of, no. But, you know, things happen as they're supposed to happen. Not all souls that have been created have been incarnated. To understand unconditional love, you must experience the lack of it in lifetime. So there's a lesson in that for you. Unconditional love is a lesson that the whole planet here is learning right now. That's one of the big lessons we're learning. I'm going to read a few cards here. I think I'm going to have time. I have such a hard time coming up with questions. So it's like a mother's love, that even when your kid is awful, a mother's going to love that child, and even more so sometimes after transgressions, because you know how pathetic they are and you're like, oh, poor thing. So we also need tolerance and patience. They're like twins of each other. The ultimate goal is to know that you the ultimate goal is to know yourself. I can't read my writing. That you'll get many challenges to know yourself, and some are going to be painful. Always remember that your experiences are given to you by yourself. You are the one who chose to have these experiences because you wanted to learn the lessons. What were we thinking? You're in complete control of your destiny. Earth is a testing ground, a battleground, and a playground. Upheaval is the reshaping of priorities, which I think is interesting. upheaval on a social scale. Interesting. So you have to follow your own intuitive guidance, but one has to be careful assigning truths and realities that it's relative to the karma that you have. You have to be careful not to impinge on another person's free will or karma. That's the big, big, big rule, is to not interfere with somebody else's. It's almost like you have to let people make mistakes. How do you know what cycle you're in? Okay, when creating realities, it's important to always remember to include the disclaimer that not only that which is most appropriate will be manifest. We would say that which is necessary is that which will manifest. So what this is saying is, when you want something to happen, hope for, ask for, believe that what is necessary will happen. Souls who decide to go down and have another cycle of life in our time here, this is what she's being told, are either foolhardy or brave, depending on their viewpoint. Some of them do it just out of duty because they know they need to go through a certain number of lives to be able to develop to a certain point. Most of these are the ones that are rather dull and plodding and conventional in your world. Oh my God, there's a lot of them. Other souls who are more advanced do it with both eyes open, knowing full well it will be difficult, but they know that it will advance their karma since they're going into that life already advanced, and they know that would be able to do 2 or 3 lifetimes worth of advancement in one lifetime. This is possible by going down at this particular time. See, it's a good thing we're here. We have to think about it that way. When it's difficult to advance spiritually in the materialism of your world. So it's good to be here. These more advanced souls are able to stay in touch and keep in tune, and they do much spiritual advancement because of the work they have to put into it. Due to the resistance of the general world trend, this causes them to become that much stronger, to where it is the equivalent of 2 or 3 lifetimes worth of growth. When they cross back over to this side, they are extremely advanced, and they are usually asked to stay on this side for a while to prepare those of us who wish to go back. And then after a while they say, gee, you know, I'd like to go back too and do some more advancing, and so they do. And that's the way it goes in the pattern of things. We would say to you now, gathered in this room, that each of you can, in your own particular way, now see in some form or another the journey which lies ahead of you. We would say that actually, in very simple terms, everyone on this planet has this same journey. However, many are more aware of it than others. We're all on the same path, going in different directions. However, all paths will eventually converge and meet in one single place. Canon is amazed that all of this information came from people who were so different from each other over such a long period of time, who did not know each other, different religions, different socioeconomic situations, but put into a trance, their information all complemented. Nothing contradicted. Some got a little different view, but it was all essentially the same outline of information. And she feels like they were all seeing the same thing. So this book is just a glimpse. It's like a geography book. You won't know what it's really like out there in the world unless you go to the country and experience the country. And we won't really know what it's really like until we die. And she said that that will be a homecoming. And that's the end of the book. So I'm excited. We have a little bit of time here. Let's do some cards. And as you saw, I wrote down a couple of sort of semi-questions, topics to work on. The first would be, this could be a simple yes-no. I feel like I need to use my gold cards today. This could feel like a simple yes-no answer, but I think there might be more to it than that. So I'm going to do a full Celtic cross on this question, but I think this question, you know, just suddenly came to me, so I think it's important. I comment all the time on how the books that we cover here often seem to present themselves and connect to each other in some strange way. And so let's ask the cards about that. The pattern. Is this a pattern of connectivity that's important? And are we drawn to these books because the message is so vital for our time? And what else can we learn about the knowledge in these books and its importance? I just really think that for years and years and years, her name has played in the back of my mind. And all of a sudden, you know, we're reading all of her books. Wow. This is kind of a phenomenal reading. The Sun. This is absolutely right. There is a purpose behind these books. There's a purpose why we've been drawn to them. There's a purpose behind the information. The Two of Cups. We need to be learning about the lack of connectivity and community and social integrity, and we need to be working together. And these books are giving us information to free us. You're going to see a lot of swords here. A lot of swords. We're talking about truth. We're talking about information, knowledge. These books are sources of knowledge to free us from our lack of knowledge. So we're at a foundation here. This is the Five of Swords reversed. This is happening. This release of information is happening to undo the bonds of tyranny and conflict and a lack of care. Too many people, look at all these swords, the Seven of Swords. Too many people are trying to steal the truth. Too many people are hiding the truth. Too many people are working against our knowledge. And we are facing, whoops, the Three of Swords. We are facing a period of time that's going to be very difficult. This information is to help us heal, to get through that and heal. It's to help us, the Page of Wands, to take action, to be equipped to handle the situation, because we're in an atmosphere, the Three of Pentacles, an atmosphere of people at conflict with each other, not working together, not being truthful together. This is our fear, that we will not know what to do, that we won't have the information that we need to do well, and that there will be no justice. We see all this injustice coming down, but look at this. The outcome, the Star. The Star bringing to an end the pain, the conflict, the misery. So yeah, there's absolutely 100% what Dolores Cannon was told, and what I have been suspecting for a long time. These books are connected, and the information is important. And there's a reason why we've all been drawn so much to these discussions of the future, discussions of the afterlife. This is knowledge that's going to give us strength and going to help us in the future. So now my next question is, she talked about the upheaval. Oh, I guess I'll just use these cards. They're so pretty. The upheaval of the world, social disorder, political upheaval. It's a realignment of priorities. And on my mind is our pal Vladimir and others. But I'm thinking globally. This rise of authoritarianism, but specifically the chaos in Ukraine and Russia. So this is a shift in priorities. Could this be the sign of the struggle as we go into another enlightenment, a higher vibration? Sort of a symptom more than anything. Let's see here. So we're talking chaos, aggression, upheaval, war, Putin, Ukraine, and everywhere else where we're getting it. It's at the heart of all this. This is the advancement. It's an opportunity. This is the offer of increasing our compassion, increasing our care for each other, waking us up to the need for a change in priorities. That's right. And we're looking at the Four of Wands overturned, reversed. Ukraine. Just this utter destruction, this social chaos, this horrible upheaval, and the suffering of the people. The Three of Cups. So we've got, I'm thinking Putin. We've got a guy here and other leaders as well who are doing physical actions in the physical world with no regard for the larger spiritual karmic effect. It's a land grab, it's a money grab, it's a power grab. But it's going to be stopped. All these efforts, all these autocrats, all these theocrats, it's going to be stopped. At the moment, we have weak leadership. The King of Cups reversed. This need for compassion in leadership and strength in leadership is not globally, we're talking globally, is not happening. And as a result, we are stuck. We are stuck in this chaos, this upheaval. We're absolutely stuck in it. But the hope is that truth, justice, and the American way, not kidding, truth and justice are, you know, the white hats. That there's going to be a realization. People are going to be freed from this by justice. Okay, so those are the only questions I could think of while I was reading. And I hope you liked this book. I really liked it. I thought it was encouraging and reassuring is a good word. Now, if you have more questions, I'll answer them tomorrow, or ask the cards tomorrow, rather. So let me know. Put them in the comments. I'm going to try to address the comments today as my goal is to get through all of them. So if you've got questions, put them in big letters and they catch my eye. And in the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and Slungafoil and Slancha.